Welcome to the show, Arvind.
Thanks, Duncan. Glad to be here again.
You've been on the show a few times and you spoke about memory tearing, of course, and that's going to be the topic of today. But for those who haven't heard the previous conversation, who are you and what do you do for Broadcom/VMware these days?
I work as a product manager at VMware and mainly focused on the platform and help enable the infrastructure related items within VMware, such as IO devices and drivers. And I also work on some of the resource management area in the operating system. And of course, memory tiering is my focus too.
Yeah, I can imagine that memory tearing is a big topic these days, especially when I talk to customers or when I'm at events. It always seems to be a hot topic, and we'll go into why that actually is. But it's probably good to give a brief explanation what memory tearing is, because I still notice every now and then that people are confused about the whole concept because it's relatively new. So maybe you can explain it.
Yeah, definitely. So we have been working on memory tiering for a while now, and but the thing is, we really released it as a VCF 9 feature. Um, and basically, the technology is that it helps drastically reduce the total costs for customers. That we do by combining lower cost NVMe with more expensive DRAM to provide a net combined host memory capacity. Essentially, it can help increase CPU efficiencies for customers, and it can help increase the workload densities just because we provide that additional capacity. And the key thing here is we make sure that we don't impact the performance of the workload. So memory tiering is a simple feature. It's very easy to explain and for customers to adopt.
Yeah, I think it's relatively easy to adopt. I think we've noticed that in the adoption rate itself, and I've noticed a lot of people in their home labs are actually using it. So I think that's fantastic. Now,
Yeah.
one thing we didn't really discuss yet over the past couple of episodes, and this is a topic that sometimes comes up but sometimes doesn't come up, is when memory tiering actually comes into play. Because I've seen some customers complaining about the fact that they didn't see any tiering happening. So it's probably good to
Uh,
explain how the mechanism more or less works so people have a better understanding of what it
yeah.
is and when it actually does something.
Yeah, sure. So memory tiering, I mean, think of it as, default 1:1. We use, 1:1, one parts of DRAM and the second part is NVMe. We try to use, 1:1 so that it doubles the capacity. And that's what we have tested it in general. But what it is, we think about it as a spillover, right? So memory tiering doesn't kick in until you actually fill up enough of DRAM. So DRAM is a key tier for us because that's where the performance of the workloads comes from. So we try to keep most of the memory in the DRAM as much as possible. And think about the NVMe tier as a spillover. Basically, when you exceed, for example, 80% of the threshold of DRAM, then that's when you try moving pages, which are the cold pages, into this NVMe tier. And basically, then we try to balance the performance by moving pages back and forth. So really, I mean, it doesn't kick in for some of the customers, but as the memory consumption grows, they will surely see that memory tiering is coming into picture.
Yeah, I think that 80% number that you mentioned is crucial. And I think that's probably the key reason a lot of people don't see it in their environment because they try to
Yeah,
stay away from that point in time. And we've seen that, of course, in the
yeah,
past as well, because we had things like ballooning, compression, we had swapping. We have all of
yeah,
those
that's right.
techniques, but you probably don't prefer to see them because it's going to come at a cost. So,
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it definitely does because, imagine with ballooning, what happens when you're really constrained on physical memory, right? Then, swap comes into picture. But the key thing with memory tiering is we actively classify pages and we are more proactive about it rather than swap, which is more sort of reactive and it doesn't distinguish between hot and cold pages. So that's the key. I mean, for memory tiering, it's that we make sure that we focus completely on the performance, keep the hot pages in DRAM at all times.
Yeah, and I think also the big difference, of course, with some of the other reclamation techniques is that the other reclamation techniques come into play fairly late. So when you're at 96 or 97% consumed capacity, where you mentioned this is around 80%. So I think that's a big difference. Now, one of the things, of course, we probably should also discuss, because I think this is a hot topic item for everyone, is why this feature is all of a sudden very relevant, because we started developing it a while back and all of a
Right.
sudden everyone is talking about it. So
Yeah, that's a good point. And I did actually. We did see, I mean, we have been promoting memory tiering for almost 1.5 to 2 years now. I mean, in general, VMware is all about efficiencies and cost optimizations. But, over the last 1 to 2 years, there has been, as you probably know, a massive AI build out, right? AI data centers are being built and there are more AI servers, and correspondingly, for these, you need different types of memory like HBM or high bandwidth memory and LPDDR. And these memories, they are slightly different from the traditional DRAM that enterprises use, in the sense that I mean, these are not really required for AI, but at the same time, we have VMware's focus is really on the traditional enterprise customer. And consequently, what has happened is all these key memory vendors have refocused their manufacturing capacity to these high margin business, because obviously AI is a high margin, more expensive business. And that has led to a lack of capacity to manufacture, the traditional DRAM. And consequently, it has also led to a price increase due to the supply shortage, because all these memory vendors couldn't really satisfy some of the DRAM traditional DRAM supply. So customers are suffering. Our traditional, normal customers who handle regular workloads, non AI sort of environments, they definitely suffer because of these price increases. I mean, I've certainly seen a lot of customers now, getting interested in memory tiering. And, I'm actually happy to state that, where there is a hardware constraint and where there is, a supply constraint, a real physical constraint, software and virtualization comes to the rescue now, right? Because now with software, we can work around these problems and we can make sure that we can use other techniques to offset, high costs and at the same time provide better efficiencies.
now you mentioned high cost a few times and total cost of ownership, but in terms of the numbers actually themselves, so what are we talking about? So what does it actually look like for customers? Because I've heard some crazy price hikes that
Yeah.
people have seen for the last, the difference between 6 months ago and now and 12 months ago now. So quick, can you give some examples?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, for example, I used to go to the Dell configuration pretty regularly. And I was actually myself surprised because, I've been monitoring it over the last 1.5, 2 years. And I've seen up to 4x to 6x price increases with DRAM alone, which is crazy. And, this has led to a lot of implications on customers, right? And even our server OEMs, because in terms of, for example, fulfilling some of the orders, and we have had customers coming to us and saying that they have not seen the orders, and there has been a lot of delays. There have been repricing because customers thought that they could satisfy their previous order with a certain price point, but now the OEMs are coming back and saying that oops, they can't satisfy it with the same pricing. So it has been pretty challenging, and we are seeing several different ideas from customers where they are planning to sort of even stick to their older infrastructure, their older servers and their older DRAM, etc. They are planning to, not entirely decommission, but try to reuse some of that infrastructure. I've even seen a few customers who have told me that they are planning to order servers without any memory on it, and sort of rebalance their existing DRAM from other older servers, and then using memory tiering overall to compensate. So, I mean, there has been like pretty quite a lot of chaos around, pricing and availability of these orders. And our enterprise customers, they're definitely looking at a good set of alternative, and memory tiering is certainly appealing to them for VMware customers, especially.
And have you actually seen the numbers of memory tiering being enabled going up then as a result?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So one thing is we do enable telemetry. I have personally talked to 100 plus customers, and they're all interested customers. For example, in the telemetry alone, we see about 30 or 40 deployments already, and it's growing pretty rapidly. And a lot of customers have even stated that they have deployed it in production, with their legacy applications, even databases, and in some cases VDI. So definitely it's here to stay, and it's something that our customers are having a serious look on. And with 9.1, I'm sure that things will be even more rapid, because 9.1 is sort of a release that more customers are possibly going to adopt.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of similar to vSAN, because it's one of those features where it typically only makes sense to enable it when you procure new hardware, because you need to have specific
Right.
devices for it. So that also has a result, I guess, or an impact, I should probably say, on the adoption itself.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, I think just like storage, DRAM is an essential component. I mean, it's in fact a very critical component, and customers can't afford to sort of lower their capacity or work around it. So certainly, we are seeing an uptick in memory tiering, and I think this is something which has come at the right opportune moment for us, and I'm glad we are doing this now.
Now, at VMware Explore, and also during one of the last podcasts that we had, we actually briefly spoke about CXL, and we spoke about Project Peaberry and what that could potentially mean for customers. But I kind of feel like the momentum has died down. I don't know if that actually is the case, but I don't hear a lot about CXL
Yeah.
anymore, and I don't hear too much about Project Peaberry. So maybe you can give an update and explain
Yeah.
what has happened to the technology and where you see it going
Yeah.
forward.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So CXL is Compute Express Link. Basically, the key thing with CXL is it's an Intel thing. Intel introduced the technology as part of its processor. And what it does is, at the most basic level, it actually lets the CPU address memory on devices, and basically, lets it coordinate with accelerators and address memory on the accelerators. So it was meant to be something that would sort of speed up some of the memory movement, and also add as a complement to DRAM, basically. But really, the hype hasn't, I mean, led to a realization. It hasn't really been realized, because I have seen personally, with server vendors, where they've had challenges with adoption among their customer base. And even in the most basic type 3 kind of a device, which is basically a CXL memory expander device, it's a simple commoditized version. We haven't really seen that take off. And to add to the complication, customers have not really looked into it, because it's a entirely different technology, and then server OEMs are not supporting all possibilities, and they are only supplying it in limited server configurations. That sort of puts a lot of challenges to adoption. The key thing, however, is, according to me, is the value proposition, right? In the end, CXL Type 3 expanders are really DRAM behind a CXL device. And what happens is, DRAM is expensive anyways, so customers are still paying the same, almost the similar amount as having DRAM on their server. So that's been, the unfortunately the case with CXL. We are taking it definitely a very careful approach, looking at adoption and making sure we enable it at the right time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I didn't really think this through when we started working on Project Peaberry, because we
Yeah,
didn't actually, well, I guess I didn't expect, but you probably didn't expect the problems with DRAM either at that point in time. So I can imagine that that is the case. Now, when it comes to CXL, though, I did saw a interesting solution by Marvel. I don't know if that is something that we are exploring, but they basically created a PCIe card that allows you to reuse the
right.
DDR4 DIMMs and then
Yeah,
expose the memory over CXL? Is that something that we are
right.
considering, or is it something that is already supported? What are we doing with that?
Yeah, yeah. I think what I would say is, things when I mean with hardware components, especially whenever there are things where is like there is like a thing where you can change the basic nature of the hardware component. It can actually help reduce some of the costs. It can help bring more efficiencies across the fleet. Those tend to be more appealing to, these specific sort of, customizations tend to be more appealing to the hyperscalers or the cloud providers, for example, because the infrastructure is completely in their control, and the end customer is not even looking into all this, and they manage and maintain these components. But with respect to enterprises, the key challenge is, server OEMs again, are not willing to support such customizations. They don't want customers to sort of, muck around, change what there is inside, and supposedly atomic hardware component. And that opens up a lot of permutations for the server OEMs, sort of plays with the warranty, and also, sort of creates support challenges for server OEMs. And that's why, I did actually, I keep talking to server OEMs pretty regularly, and this is something that will be very challenging for them to support. And that's why, it hasn't really been successful. But the day, they are open to supporting this, we are, of course, we'll be willing to work with them.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's going to be a point in time where people will buy less hosts as a result of memory shortages or the prices of DRAM. At that point in time, they will probably be more interested in supporting a solution like this, I guess.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, necessity drives these things. And, when we have enough mass of customers, asking for such solutions, there will definitely be a point where, server OEMs will have to relent. But at the moment, the current situation, the industry, and how AI is looking like, it looks like almost like, all this is lower priority, and even for the server OEMs, because they are the ones building out these massive AI servers too, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I guess as long as they sell, there's no immediate need to make changes. Now, one of the other things that I briefly wanted to discuss, because this is a feature that was introduced in the previous release, was the support for hardware rate. Is this something that you see customers adopting? Because I kind of had mixed feelings about it. Because if you look at what it protects for, it protects against a NVMe failure. But looking at what we've seen with vSAN, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen that frequent. And if you monitor the environment correctly, chances of actually hitting that scenario are quite slim. So, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
about the whole hardware RAID configuration for memory tiering specifically?
Yeah, the hard, I mean, at the outset, what we have seen is, customers are wary about resiliency. I mean, that's one of the first 3 or 4 questions I get asked with memory tiering with customers. is, how do I support resiliency? And you are right. I mean, we do recommend high endurance devices, like, for example, 3 drive write per day endurance, which is pretty, I mean, if you compare it to even vSAN, it's higher endurance than that, and a mixed use drive, right? So that itself should provide enough endurance to last for like 4 or 5 years based on our performance measurements and what we have seen with the traffic on the NVMe. Um, but in the end, customers have seen these devices fail in the field, and they are wary about it. And they don't want this to become sort of the single point bringing their whole host down. So what we have seen is, hardware RAID does help. I mean, with BCF 9, at that time, that was an easy solution, hardware RAID, because, it was already available and it was transparent to us. So customers could use, for example, VROC or a RAID controller behind, which you could put two NVMe devices. But like you said, hardware RAID could get into issues with respect to deployment because not a lot of server models support it. And so with 9.1, we are actually targeting a new form of RAID, which is software based. So this is completely dedicated, built for memory tiering, and this provides the same redundancy. Customers can plug two NVMe devices instead of one, and if one of them fails, then the other one continues to operate as normal. And the good thing is that it doesn't really impact any performance. So memory tiering continues to run as is.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Now, you've already alluded to it. There's a new release coming up, and you've already mentioned, partly what's going to be part of that release. But of course, I would be interested in hearing more. So, what else do we have planned for memory tiering in the next release?
Yeah, a lot. So we have continuously listened to our customers. I mean, a lot of customers have already done POCs testing with memory tiering. We've had some really good early adopter customers who have been gracious enough to give us a lot of feedback. So the focus really has been, one of them I mentioned is software mirroring. I mean, that adds resiliency without any hardware complication. But really, what we also looked into is the ease of usability and also observability. So it's all about usability, this release. We want to make sure that we provide a rich set of support from both VC and VCF ops perspective. For VC, we are introducing newer tiles, for example, where they can get better observability, newer workflows. Day two operations can become simplified, and they can even do cluster operations. It provides a lot of different options for customers. VC of Ops is highly enhanced too. We are providing, looking into providing dedicated dashboards and more observability with respect to post deployment. For example, customers can now look into bandwidth and latency characteristics directly from the dashboard. In addition, one of the things I'm really happy about is, which a lot of customers have asked about, is the simulation aspect of it. So even if you didn't have memory tiering enabled, a customer could go and see their environment, look into their clusters, and see which clusters are capable of doing memory tiering based on certain criteria. They can even look into, for example, things like cost reductions and VM density increases. Overall, how their tiers will look like once they're deployed, based on some extrapolation logic. So that, I think, adds a lot of value, and helps customers make the decision quickly towards memory tiering.
Yeah, I think at the tech advisory board, uh, probably a month ago or even longer than that in London, that was probably the number one requested feature, the what if scenario. What if I enable it? Is that going to help me or not? So I think that's definitely big. Now, before I let you go, any famous last words or any final thoughts you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would like to mention is memory tiering is certainly being deployed in production. It has already been deployed with a few customers, and they are not just using it in testing, but also in production. That I want to make it clear, because a lot of customers are still coming and asking if I have seen customers who have deployed this in production. So, like I mentioned, a lot of their older legacy applications continue to run with memory tiering, and we continue to sort of work with the customers and continue monitoring them. A lot of customers are in the POC or early stages. They're certainly looking into it because of all the situation that we talked about with respect to hardware and pricing. They are ordering it. They're planning to deploy it. As VCF ramps up, memory tiering will certainly ramp up too. I'm very fairly positive. And in general, I would say there is a lot of focus on value creation with VCF. The infrastructure teams are working harder than ever. We are trying to bring more innovations, and we'll do more improvements. We have a roadmap for memory tiering and a lot of other features. So our focus will continue to bring benefits to customers and more efficiencies, more value to help them save costs and run their workloads in VMware better.
And that's it. Thanks for tuning in to the Unexplored Territory podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review or rating wherever possible. And please join us again next time as we uncover more insights into cutting-edge solutions shaping the world of IT. Until then, stay comfortable, keep exploring.